There's some spinning reels that don't have very much as far as an audible drag. Both these reels do. Hey guys, what's going on? I'm going to do a little comparison video between a couple of reels I've got here. I've got the Shimano Stradic 2000 series, which this is a discontinued reel. This is probably 10 or more years old, but I still use it quite often. And then I'm going to compare that with the KastKing Sharky III that I've had for about two and a half years, somewhere around there. So let's jump right into it. The first thing you'll notice is the KastKing reel is just a little bit larger. Shimano, like I said, actually discontinued the 2000 series of Stradic. They came out with the 2500 series, so it's a little bit different, and that's where I'm going to actually base a lot of my comparison on the specs with, because I couldn't find any specs specifically for this reel. So first things first, the line capacity. In my opinion, a lot of spinning reels have great line capacity. You're not really going to run out of line unless you're fishing for saltwater fish or stripers that make big long runs. I primarily fish for bass, so I'm never going to see the end of the spool with either reel, but the Stradic does have 140 yard capacity of 8-pound test monofilament. The KastKing Sharky III has 190 yards of 8-pound monofilament, so a little larger capacity. Again, not necessarily needed for me, but I know some guys that, like I said, fish for the bigger game fish, stripers, saltwater fish. That line capacity is more vital for them. So another thing is the weight of the reels, and I do not know the weight of this specific reel, but the 2500 series Stradic, I did a little research. It weighs 7.9 ounces. The Sharky III weighs 9.1. I actually prefer a little bit heavier spinning reel, because when I'm holding it as I'm fishing, what happens with most fishing rods is they're tip heavy. So that ends up pulling the rod down. So if you get a counterbalance, which is a little bit heavier, it's going to help balance that rod out, which even though it is heavier, it will cause less arm fatigue because you're not constantly fighting the tip of that rod as you're fishing. A little over an ounce different, not that big of a deal. To be quite honest, I don't notice the difference when I'm fishing between these two, but I do like a little heavier weight reel on the back of my spinning rod just for that counterbalance. So now we're going to get into the gear ratios. The Stradic is a faster gear ratio. It's about a 6.0 to 1 gear ratio, meaning it's going to take in about 35 inches per turn. And again, this is the 2500 series, not the 2000 that I have. I would imagine the 2000 is going to be a little bit less than that as far as inches per turn, just because it's a smaller spool. I could be wrong, I don't know. The Sharky III is a 5.2 to 1 gear ratio. It takes in just under 28 inches per turn. Not a big deal for me. Most of my spinning rod techniques, I'm just using the reel to draw up the slack and using the rod to pull the bait, whether I'm using a tube for smallmouth bass, a Ned rig, drop shot, shaky head. Most of it's done with the rod, and I just reel up the slack. Ideally, a faster speed reel for that makes more sense, but a slower gear ratio isn't going to hurt me in any way that I've noticed. I haven't lost any fish because I can't keep up with them. So another thing we've got here is the reels have a lot of very similar features. The Stradic has the anti-reverse button on the bottom, and that allows you to back reel if you need to. The Sharky III has it kind of in the front underneath the spool, and then it does the same thing. I actually prefer it here in the front of the spool because I've had my finger, or especially this time of year if I'm wearing gloves, accidentally hit that, and then all of a sudden I'll set the hook and it'll spin backwards and I'll miss the fish because of it. When the anti-reverse is in the front, there's really nothing that's going to get caught on it unless you hit your reel on something. So again, that's personal preference. I know a lot of guys prefer it at the bottom. Me personally, I prefer it here out of the way. I don't do back reeling very much. Some guys do. So again, I like it kind of out of the way. The drag system, they're very similar. There's some spinning reels that don't have very much as far as an audible drag. Both these reels do. Let's see if I can pull some out here. So that's got a nice audible clicking sound to it. And the KastKing's very similar, maybe just a hair quieter. And it's actually about the same in volume, just a little different tone. Both of these reels that I've found are very, very smooth. I've been nothing but impressed with both of these. I mean, you can see just how easily, now I'm going to get it all tangled up here. Let me reel in this line real quick to get it out of the way. Alright, so like I was saying, as you can see, it's very smooth. It does not take much force to get that around. And I don't know if you can hear it. Let's see if I can get the line out of here. But it's a very quiet, very smooth reel. When I first got my hands on this reel, I was shocked at how smooth it was. I was not expecting a reel, to be quite honest, the reel of this price to have this much quality and this smooth. I actually prefer using it more than the Stradic because, and it could just be the age of my Stradic, but it's smoother than my Stradic. And there's a couple other features that I like better. I mentioned one, the anti-reverse, and then there's a couple others we'll get into here. But here you can see this one's very smooth as well. And again, this is, like I said, approximately a 10-year-old reel. But very smooth. This one does have a little bit more noise. But one of the reasons I prefer to use my Sharky over the Stradic, simply the handle. This handle has a lot of play in it. It's actually in the actual handle, whatever this knob part is called itself. You can hear the rattling, kind of shaking, the play that it has. The handle portion into the reel, that's solid. That's not moving anywhere. The KastKing, there is nothing. That is smooth as can be. And there's no shaking. The only shaking is from me actually shaking the reel. You can't hear anything. To me, when I'm reeling, typically with a spinning reel, I'm getting a lighter bite, and that's just my experience with it. So any excess noise or vibration that the reel creates takes away from what's going on in the environment. So even though this isn't much, every now and then this will squeak if I'm reeling. Well, again, it's a 10-year-old reel, so I don't expect it to be perfect, but I prefer this guy for that reason. You know, they both reels allow you to change the retrieve left-handed or right-handed. I tightened this one down really far. The big difference between these two reels is the price tag. The Stradic comes in at just under $200 at $199.99 on most websites. The Sharky III comes in at $54.99. I was amazed at how well I liked this Sharky III compared to the Stradic for that price. I mean, it's a quarter of the price. And yeah, I've been nothing but impressed. I wouldn't hesitate to recommend this to anybody. It's become one of my favorite spinning, well, has become my favorite spinning reel and one of the favorite reels that I throw just because of how impressed I am with it. I love fishing it every day that I'm out there. But alright, well, I hope you enjoyed the comparison. Hope you learned a little bit, and hopefully you give the Sharky III a try. I think you'll like it.
Subscribe to the KastKing YouTube channel too. Learn new fishing tips and fishing hacks. Watch how-to fishing videos and fishing gear comparisons. See new KastKing fishing tackle reviews. Hear interviews with fishing personalities. Enjoy a constant flow of new content from the KastKing Pro team. Don't miss announcements about these topics. Subscribe now to youtube.com/KastKing. Click the subscribe button below.